And from a liability perspective,
well, precisely that as well.
We can't just give out those prescription drugs without having the animal in our care. So we have to have examined them, we have to have weighed them. There is a process to it.
We have to abide by those rules and laws. So it's not like we're making life difficult by not giving out medications that are scheduled. It's the law.
Welcome back to the Paws Effect podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cara, and today I'm joined again by Nic Stirk, the owner of Watercrest Vets. You may remember our past discussions on topics like heat stroke, raw food diets, dental care, and itchy skin. But today, we're tackling something a little bit different: the liabilities and challenges of veterinary practice ownership. From the rise of rabies cases to managing bite risks and dealing with non-payment, owning a vet practice is no small feat. We'll also be exploring how independent practice is different from corporate vet chains and why that matters to you, the pet owner. I'm back, Dr. Nic Stirk. I'll put you back in. Well, I haven't got you back in the studio because this is the first time.
Yeah, fantastic. Nice new venue for us.
What do you think?
And I think it's looking really good.
It's a bit echoey.
Amazing.
So we've obviously got the acoustic paneling at the back, but it's a work in progress.
Nice.
Try and make the sound a bit better for our listeners.
Excellent.
So stay with us. But welcome.
Thank
you.
My
first guest in this room.
Amazing.
Yeah.
The inaugural podcast. Awesome.
Very cool. So I know some of our listeners follow us, but for those who don't, we've done podcasts before on heat stroke. We've been locked in my car, suffering the intensity of a hot day. We've done one on raw food diets. We've done itchy skin. We've done some dental disease.
Yep.
But I've asked you to come back, and I think it's quite nice that this is a kind of conversation because you are back in a practice where you started at Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital. You are now the owner of Watercrest Vets.
Yes.
Doing very well. And here we sit as two practice owners.
That's it.
And I hope that we could give our listeners a bit of an insight into really the liabilities associated with private practice. One of the things I said I was definitely going to comment on.
Yes, my dirty trousers.
Your dirty trousers, because you've literally come from consults to come and chat with me today, whereas I've been in my office. So I'm nice and clean, maybe a bit of cat hair.
That's all right.
But welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
So, I suppose, this is quite a big topic. We talk about it sort of off air a bit. It's, can be a bit of a lonely space, I think, being a practice owner. Fortunately, we do have a better support system these days.
Absolutely.
But there's a huge liability to running a small animal practice. And I think it's comes from many angles, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's start. I mean, one of the things we've been talking about quite a lot recently is rabies.
Yeah.
And you're very involved in trying to do what you can.
So certainly, I think the states. So it is a state-controlled disease. It's a notifiable disease. It's a fatal disease, and there's no getting away from that. Having looked on the CDC website, they claim maybe 3 or 4 people, if that, have survived rabies. And if rabies has been the longest documenting virus, it's pretty much been around since time immemorial, and it hasn't really changed. So for 3 to 4 people to survive, if it was true rabies, over the course of centuries, you can pretty much guarantee that once you're showing clinical signs, it's terminal, it's fatal, which is very, very unfortunate. So our only real, arsenal for it is education and vaccination. So the vaccines nowadays are phenomenal. They do provide coverage. It is essential, and it is by law that the rabies vaccinations have to be done. So we have, I think it started last year when we had a huge collaboration with the 5 practices in our area. And I think, just to go on a quick little aside like that, I think because the practice owners, we're not fighting against each other. No. We have such a good working relationship with our little community up here on the Upper Highway, that we can ask for assistance. We bounce ideas off each other. And it was this collaboration last year that we had phenomenal turnouts of people coming through because we were offering them the free rabies vaccinations. Because I do think the state has got so many other things to have to worry about. I mean, there's foot and mouth. the rabies. So anything that I think us as private vets can just take the workload off the state so that we can ensure that our communities themselves are safe with regards to rabies vaccinations. I think that's an important aspect of what we do in the area as well. So having literally today we received, because we get updates, we're on a rabies chat group with all the vets in the area, that the numbers do seem to be coming down with regards to human infections and animal positive results coming through. So I think slowly but surely, just with persistence, we are slowly but surely chipping away at the numbers, to get that number to come down. So there is a global initiative by 2030 to try and eliminate dog-mediated rabies. It's always going to be in the wildlife population. You're not going to get rid of that. But certainly from the transition between wildlife populations and humans, with the dogs being the intermediates there, we can certainly do something about that. And that's where the rabies vaccinations comes in.
And then, there's a big drive, because not only do we obviously worry about, like we said, rabies in our pets, but now this becomes a liability for all in contacts.
100%.
And I take it you're obviously regularly vaccinated. You have to make sure that your staff are vaccinated, because there are cases that come in that they may look neurological or present in particular ways that don't initially indicate that this is a rabies case, that end up being positive cases. And by that point, the risk is so high that you have to have had some form of vaccinations.
So it's not obviously because it's a job-related issue. So that's why we as professionals and our staff, would be vaccinated. It's not something that everyone has to now rush out and go and get vaccinated against rabies, because it's not entirely necessary unless you've been exposed. Then you go through the vaccination process. But the more and more research that's getting still done on rabies, it's never, yes, it can be cut and dry. You look at that dog's definitely got rabies, but they can sometimes come in presenting completely asymptomatic, but just weird. So because we have rabies endemic in this area, it's always sitting at the back of our minds that we have to consider it. And yes, because it's a notifiable disease, if something happens and it goes off, then we have to let the state know about it.
Absolutely.
And then it's out of our jurisdiction, unfortunately. Then as private vets, we've got no more say in the matter. Then the state takes over. And unfortunately, it usually does mean that, if the vaccinations of any in-contact animals are not up to date, that they could actually be removed and euthanized. And then obviously the pet in question would be euthanized as well. So there's no effective diagnostics, unfortunately, other than a post-mortem examination of the section of the brain under the microscope to get a definitive diagnosis. So there's no blood test or antibody test or anything like that, unfortunately, that we can use. It's a post-mortem diagnosis.
And we're talking sort of liabilities as practice owners or as professionals. One of the concerns is obviously, the in contacts, but we're talking general, like, even bites, the possibility of being bitten and that then impacting your work, for 100%. Example. How often do you face that
So thankfully, I think that all comes with experience as well. You always know if you're going to be dealing with a spicy kitty, and then you can take precautions for that. It's thankfully very, very rare that you get this totally, totally unpredictable animal. So, I joke and say that the tortoiseshells are the same the world over. I've worked in the UK as well, and they are equally as spicy there as they are here. So you know how to, you'll take the precautions if you have to get out your the gauntlets to handle them. But it also depends on the capabilities of your handling staff. So obviously the more experience that they've got as well, the easier it is to handle things. So I must say, very fortunate in my practice, it is, I think in 17 years I've been bitten twice. So you actually get more injuries from the cats when they just decide to swipe.
So you've got a scratch wound on your arm. That's probably just a friendly
jumping up the dogs this morning. But I think that all comes with experience, that you can start to, just like little subtle things, like if the dog's just standing still looking at you, not wanting to interact, then you just have to be a little bit cautious. Sometimes as well, if it is a potentially anxious dog, then the owners being there can make the situation a little bit worse because the animal will be picking up on their anxiety. So I don't ever want clients to feel embarrassed or being picked on or anything else like that. Or if we ask them to just take a step out the room so then the animal can't see them, and you will be amazed at how often that just in itself is enough to get the animal just to chill out, because now that anxiety or that protection for the owner has been eliminated.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and it actually, that tends to work quite nicely as well. So,
and how do you handle the we need to use a muzzle discussion with owners?
So I just nickname it a party hat. So just try and take we're gonna have to put a little party hat on you. So there's various ones. You get the nylon ones that can just slip over with a little clip, a quick release clip in the back. You get the basket muzzles. So sometimes as well, one of our dogs growing up, that was almost like his comforter. So whenever because I wouldn't deal with him at home, that's fine. But if you had to go in, if I was still at university or anything else like that, and I wasn't there, we had the little muzzle for him. And as soon as that muzzle was put on, he was completely calm. So I think that's a rare instance where if you have to use a muzzle that it actually calms him down, because I sometimes find in my experience that putting a muzzle on can actually make the situation worse, because then they're trying to frantically scratch it off. And then again, I think the handling with your handlers and their capabilities comes in very, very well nicely as well. So I think often kind of like a less hands-on with a muzzle approach can sometimes be better. Don't get me wrong. There are times when you have to, and there's no getting away from it. But it's just to reassure the client or the pet owner that it doesn't hurt them. It's more so to keep them safe as well as us. So
the last thing you want, again, back to liabilities, is the owner
somebody
being bitten
to get hurt. The owner getting bitten, one of our staff getting bitten, the dog injuring itself. There's also use the crepe bandages as well, just to tie around the mouth. So that just goes around there, and you tie it behind the ears. So that's a very sturdy, but it's a soft and it doesn't hurt them. So muzzle isn't designed to hurt. It's just designed to keep the sharp end under control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Dr. Cara, a veterinarian and the host of the Paws Effect podcast. Our show is all about enhancing the lives of pets by providing reliable, science-based advice and engaging in discussions with experts in veterinary medicine, pet nutrition, and animal behavior. As a professional with years of experience in both the UK and South Africa, I run a 24-hour veterinary hospital and an online pet store. I'm also pursuing a master's in animal nutrition and consult for UltraPet, a local veterinary-grade pet food manufacturer. My passion lies in sharing knowledge and helping pet owners make informed decisions about their pet companions. The Paws Effect podcast is rapidly growing, attracting a dedicated, engaging audience of pet owners who are passionate about their pets' health and well-being. Our listeners trust us for credible, informative content that empowers them to provide the best care for their animals. We are looking for sponsors who share our commitment to pet health and who want to reach a highly engaged and expanding audience. Partnering with us means aligning your brand with trusted and influential content that resonates deeply with pet owners. As a sponsor, you'll benefit from high visibility on a platform that is used for multiple purposes, including educational content, product recommendations, and community building. We offer various sponsorship packages designed to fit your marketing goals and budget, ensuring that your brand gets the reach and the impact it deserves. Join us in making a difference in the lives of pets and their families. Let's work together to bring valuable insights and quality products to our passionate audience. If you're interested in sponsoring the Paws Effect podcast, please get in touch. I look forward to partnering with you. Before we continue, let's address a critical aspect of feline health: weight management. Allow me to introduce you to UltraPet's special diet, Metabolite cat weight loss food. It is available in 2 kg and 4 kg packs, specially crafted to support your cat's well-being and vitality. This recipe isn't just about reducing weight, it's about promoting healthy weight and management. With 34% protein, 11% fat, and 4% fiber, it helps control lean muscle mass while maintaining a healthy weight, ensuring optimal nutrient absorption. Featuring a tantalizing chicken and rice flavor, UltraPet ensures that even the picky eaters will enjoy their meals. The vacuum-coated kibbles deliver a taste experience that your cats will love. What sets this weight loss food apart is its formulation made with fresh meat, providing a healthier source of protein. Plus, the added addition of taurine supports good eyesight development and a healthy cardiac activity. With omega-6 and 3 fatty acids, this food promotes a shiny coat and a healthy skin. Additionally, the inclusion of VitaCat ensures essential vitamins and minerals for healthy development and immune system protection. The prebiotics in this formula create an environment for microflora to flourish, further supporting your cat's digestive health. UltraPet's special diet Metabolite is an ideal choice for overweight cats. Just ask Freya, my Bengal, who has thrived on this diet. Give it a try and see the difference for yourself. Your cats will thank you, and you'll appreciate UltraPet's commitment to feline health. Now, back to our episode. So I started our conversation of sort of informing our listeners that we're private practice owners. Can you explain to the listeners how things are changing and how practice ownership is sort of evolving, particularly it's newly evolving in South Africa, and the difference between us and corporate practices, just to give a bit of context?
So the corporate aspect of things, so having said I worked in the UK and I did work in a big corporate over there, and I think they must have had about 100 or so practices then throughout the UK. So I think there's pros and cons to everything. Obviously, I think they're wanting to focus more on larger practices, so multi-vet practices, 3 or more, so it becomes more viable for them sort of thing as well. Whereas my practice, there's 2 of us, and we're still very much independent, so we kind of have free rein as to what we can do with regards to ordering in specific drugs. We're not tied down into any contracts with any of the pharmaceutical companies perhaps, whereas you find then that with the corporates, they tend to get better deals, for example.
Like a buying power.
So that sort of thing, but then there'll be certain companies that they will be able to then, so obviously we don't have that buying power, but that is possibly one thing, but then you'll tend to find, depending on what the dynamic is within the corporate group as to who owns what, et cetera, who runs what. So generally speaking, the corporate will look after the admin side of things and then lets the vets do what they need to do. But then also, I think that can possibly be a little bit restricting to the vets because they might not be able to have as much freedom as they would have normally in an independent practice like yours and mine.
So, I mean, I find it quite fascinating because, again, I also worked in the UK for a bit, and it was quite sort of accepted, the whole corporate structure, and but also, like you say, that down to that freedom to sort of set appointment schedules and times as an independent, versus it being run potentially by people who are good business owners ultimately, and potentially have the experience of business ownership and or marketing and so on and so forth. Whereas most veterinary professionals have qualified as vets and maybe have taken an interest or ended up in this position. It's been quite a steep learning curve.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, as time goes on, we're getting better and better at appreciating sort of what we can do and what we can't do in terms of capabilities of ownership and marketing, and but it can be quite tough because obviously it's sometimes learning by making mistakes.
100%.
And so it leads me into the impact our pet owners have on us as professionals. Can we start with your experience? Obviously, you're an experienced vet. We've both been around for a bit now, so we've had some time to come across some incredible clients who've really added to our day and made it so fulfilling.
Yeah.
And then the other end of the spectrum, which has been quite tough and emotionally quite draining. Can we talk about that and what you've seen through your time and your friendships with other vets? In terms of the impact?
I mean, I must say I'm very, very grateful that the clientele that my practice serves have been phenomenal. It's incredibly, incredibly rare that we have difficult clients coming through. And what I have found in the past, that there will always be some other potential underlying reason as to why the client is being angry, emotional, or difficult, for example. Maybe because they feel a little bit of guilt for having left a condition too long. So now they're feeling the guilt, and it's obviously going to cost potentially a lot more to try and sort out something that's been sitting there for a while, as opposed to, if you notice it, get it sorted out there and then. So we always try and encourage, if you see like a little lump or a little laceration or something like that, it's not going to cost you anything to just ask, what would you recommend to do this? What would you recommend to do that? So we can get situations and conditions sorted out faster and quicker and cheaper, as opposed to then having to, for example, run a whole barrage of blood tests, x-rays, do ultrasounds, when it could have been picked up or sorted out a little bit sooner. So generally, the sooner something comes in, I think the better and the more effective then the treatments can be. And again, none of us are perfect. And there are certain things that can be very confusing. And we're also very blessed to have the specialists in our areas as well that we can then refer cases to. And we always, yes, unfortunately, get it in the neck that, vets are only in it for the money, and we don't really love the animals.
Have you got no compassion?
And that, I promise you, that you have to harden yourself to that, but it really does. It does chip away, and it takes its toll, because I'm sure you can also testify to this, that everyone thinks that vets are rolling in money, and I can categorically say that we're not. We have exceptionally narrow profit margins. So if there's any major expense, it really does take a hit on the practice. So then again, clients that either don't want to or not able to pay for the services that we offer, that also has a roll-on effect. So that can be very, very tricky, a very, very delicate little balancing act to try and do that. So at least nowadays there are options. Pet insurance is an amazing thing. People often get confused between pet insurance and medical aid. So there are two very, very different things. So it is like a short-term insurance. You get a certain allocated amount depending on what tier you're on and with whom you're with. So it's not like a medical aid where you've got your little savings account that you can use, or hospitalization and stuff. So with it not being a medical aid and it is an insurance, we certainly not at my practice, we don't adjust the prices or anything else at all. So it's not like you go to a specialist and they charge you 4 times the medical aid rate, and then the medical aid will only pay half of that, for example. Our prices are our prices. What it does enable us to do, if costing is going to be an issue, if you are insured, it enables us to do our jobs properly. So if you come in with a dog that needs to have a full workup, so that's running bloods, doing x-rays, urinalysis, whatever, it is going to cost. So yes, it can often be quite a chunk of change, but if you have the pet insurance, then at least you have the ability to claim back from the insurer, and you'll generally get most of that claim back. But again, it allows us to do what we need to do in order to go down the diagnostic.
Should we do x-rays or run bloods? If we need to or feel both are warranted, we can do both at the same time and get those.
As much information.
Absolutely.
Because, it's our patients can't talk to us. We have to rely on what our owners tell us. And then, from a diagnostic and laboratory point of view, what answers we can get from that as well. So again, it's not a case that yes, you've got pet insurance now, we hike the prices up. It's not the case. We don't get any kickbacks from any of the pet insurers either. So in that respect, yes, veterinary care, specifically if you're having to do some extensive workups, it can get expensive. And that's where the pet insurance certainly does make a huge difference. I've also got a couple of clients that every month they just put money away, or they leave it as a credit on their account with us. So they have a little nest egg, if you want to look at it that way. If they're not prepared to, or if they can't afford then the monthly installments, they just every now and again they just put a little bit of money away onto the credit.
Barbados, you just don't
I wish.
I know. So let's go to that, the need for a break. Like we have a high suicide rate in our profession. We've got a lot of professionals who talk about depression and burnout. What's been your experience with it?
So it is a very, very real thing. I qualified in 2007, and I was involved at Onderstepoort on the student council. And the lecturer who was overseeing it, he also just mentioned, like, what is the situation with regards to stress and anxiety with regards to the students and whatever. So we actually did, now this is way back in 2007, that we actually did a very, very brief little questionnaire that we handed out to each year. It was very basic. It was anonymous, but the results from that as to how many people then already, while we were still students, were already showing signs of depression and anxiety, were already on medication, were already having therapy. And that, I think, has kind of started the ball rolling at the university, because then they would then get the psychologists involved and do a proper investigative study. So already now, 17 years ago, it was already sort of picked up that things were heading in that direction. And that's also why when people say that we are not compassionate and we don't love animals, it really does hit home, because we've studied for 6, 7, some people have studied longer than that to be able to work in the veterinary profession. Mm-hmm. There's no ways we would be doing it if we didn't have compassion and the love for the animals, and indirectly then for the pet owners as well. So yeah, it is a real thing. The compassion fatigue as well, where yes, a client may lose a pet, but in March this year particularly, we had a horrendous month with regards to euthanasias, and it does take its toll. Often clients will say, I don't know how you do your job or how you do this aspect of your job, but I always just reassure them that if it's done for the right reasons, it's not a problem. Yes, it's still very, very sad, but at least we know that we have the capability, and it's almost like a privilege that we can stop the pain, we can stop the suffering. But yes, there are other aspects where it does take, especially if you have this long-standing, amazing little client with their little dog or something. Yeah, it does hit us. So yeah, recently, so I was actually thinking about it the other day, because it was my friend's birthday. It's the year of first for her, so she took her life in March. A vet and a close friend. We lost another colleague in November last year, also to suicide. So for me personally, that takes up to a total of 7 colleagues that have taken their lives over a fairly short period of time as well. So it is a very, very real thing. And yeah, the constant knocking, I won't say constant, but yeah, every time someone does come in and has a negative comment, when you see on social media, what vet can I go to that's not going to cost me an arm and a leg? It does take a little stab every now and again, because we're all trying to do our best. The more sophisticated a practice is, the more expensive the overheads are, but then the more offerings that we can get to try and get an answer for you. So yeah, it is a tightrope act, and it's not always easy.
I mean, you were saying, I mean, you've got a really great set of clients. I mean, overall, you run quite a nice community feel. Most of the listeners may be interested to know that most of our complaints come from the after hours work that we do. So they're not generally our long-standing clients who we've built a relationship and the trust relationships there. It's for people who don't generally come to us and may go to another practice and then end up here in the middle of the night, see that the fees are higher, seeing potentially maybe have to have a wait time, or don't have the kind of communication that they used to, because the vet's on their own and they're working under kind of different conditions. And most of our complaints generally come from the after hours work we do, and to the extent where family and friends have said, well, like, is it worth it? Is it actually worth running a 24-hour practice? Because ultimately, if that's where your complaints come from, the biggest debt is from that part of the business. Is it actually worth you pursuing it? But I think when you set up expectations for your practice, it's like, can you imagine not opening on a Saturday? You can't. When you've set yourself up to offer a particular service, you kind of are obliged to continue with that, despite the niggles that come with it.
So I mean, when I first started, when I took over the practice, it was the rules were the rules, or the opening times were the opening times. So it was Monday to Friday, Saturday mornings, and Sundays and public holidays closed. And I did have right in the beginning the odd client, and I was by myself at that stage. So it was a single man practice. So I mean, there were often weeks on end that I would be working 7 days a week, because there would be inpatients, and I would have to then go in over the weekend to check them as well. So I did have this one client many years ago getting quite irate with me because I didn't then offer after-hour services as well. So I just basically had to say to her, it's not humanly or physically possible for me to have worked an entire full day, then get called out at night, and then have to go to work the next day, but then still working weeks on end at 7 days a week. It's not feasible. So I think having an after-hours 24 service is crucial in an area. And yes, unfortunately, like the points you've really raised, but it's because it's an emergency, people will be emotional. They'll just grab and run, and they'll leave their wallets at home, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's unfortunately one of those things with it being a high stress. And if you then get a major surgery emergency, then that vet is then tied up into that. So yes, there is going to be a waiting time for non-essential, not emergency. Then triage is so important for something like that as well. But it is, it's important. And understandably, yes, it's your pet. You are going to be worried, but you also just need to take, read the room, see what's more severe than the next case that's coming in. And if there is a little bit of a wait time, I'm afraid that's just unfortunately how the cookie crumbles.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You may feel it's critical and really important, but relative to something else, the vet won't be able to assess that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're not going to make you wait unnecessarily.
No. Yeah. And just also with regards to that, so if an emergency happens during the course of the day, we had one yesterday with this little 3 kg, 11-week-old that had a little bit of an altercation with some bees, but at least the owner phoned as they were leaving the house. So even if you live 500 meters away, just phone. So at least then the staff, so everything was prepared for this little guy arriving. All the medication was ready. It was drawn up so that we could deal with him immediately. So it is always good if there is an emergency. Emergencies, yes, will be triaged first. If it's a little cut in the skin, not bleeding to death, it's not really that much of an issue. You can just wait a little bit, especially if the staff are busy. But if it is a real emergency, you can just give us a call and give us a heads up that something, potentially that is an emergency is on its way, and we can be prepared, because that it can be that timing that is the difference between life and death potentially.
Absolutely.
So always just give the veterinary practice you're going to a heads up that you're on your way.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm doing all the doom and gloom talk today or questions today, but let's talk about the non-payment a bit more, because I think from my understanding, a lot of people don't understand, like you said, the very small profit margin. And perhaps they don't understand that, going to somewhere like the SPCA is actually better for them, because the impact it has on us as I think even corporates, but a practice is huge. That non-paying client, because it's not just about your time. How do you generally approach the non-payers? How do you inform people? How best do you structure it in your mind to be able to share the impact it has on us as business owners?
So, first of all, if a client is coming for a consultation that may require further investigation, I will always discuss costs with them upfront. There's no point in being shady or secretive about it, because they're going to get the invoice at the end of the day, and you would rather that they actually be prepared for it than not. So that's where the asking of the deposit then comes in as well, because if a patient is admitted, we have to use consumables. If they go onto fluids, for example, it's the drip bag, it's the admin set, it's the running of the infusion pumps. If we have to run bloods, it's all the consumables that are involved in that as well. So that sort of thing, that's why we do ask for deposits, that we are able to at least cover the costs for that, because at the end of the month, we still have to pay all of our suppliers, et cetera, et cetera. We've got to pay the salaries, all the utility bills. So with the money not coming in, that restricts like the cash flow, and that can often be very, very difficult as well with running a practice, because there is such a narrow profit margin that we're working with. So yes, there are pet insurance, like we've mentioned already. That's a really good one to have. There are other payment options. The practice has to be enrolled in that. So that also offers a payment plan for clients, but they have to then apply for that themselves. But you then have to be a member of the MediWallet. So that's, as far as I remember, that's 3 months or 3 installments with no interest charged. if you're wanting to pay it over a longer period of time, then MediWallet would then sort out with the client. So ultimately how that works is that MediWallet would then pay the veterinary practice, and then they then sort out the
minus 10%.
Yes.
So it does
we
have
do. We do. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it does have a kickback effect on us as a practice owner then as well. So MediWallet, for example, will take a 10% fee, a risk fee, I suppose. But then at least the practice has got their money, and they can carry on doing business. And then the people who are, that's their business, is dealing with money and payments and the likes of that. Then they can then sort that out as well. So nowadays there are certainly options that can be offered to clients in order to facilitate easy payments or, more structured payments if they're needing something like that.
So would you do it again?
So initially in the beginning, having taken over a practice that I had no actual idea what it was doing. I was overseas at the time, and I came back to start working there, and within 4 months they basically said, "Oh, by the way, the practice is for sale." So I was like, I wouldn't have necessarily come back from the UK so soon, but then I thought, well, this is a nice opportunity, see what we can do with it. So initially it was all very enthusiastic, very exciting. Had an amazing response from the previous clients. We got a whole lot of clients then coming back, because I think the atmosphere and the whole structure of the practice before I took over was questionable. I must say over the last 7 years that I've been now the practice owner, we've been very, very blessed and very fortunate with how well things have gone. So yes, with anything, there's going to be the good days and the bad days. I'm just very blessed, like I say, that my clientele have been phenomenal. We really don't have many issues, and like I say, it's very rare if it does come across. And I would like to believe, that the services that we offer and the reputation that we have speaks for itself as well.
Absolutely.
So in that regard, there are days where I do question, is it really worth it, because of all the extra stress? And I mentioned to you earlier, because yes, in 2009, 2010, I worked here at Watercrest Vets, when Lawson Cairns was still the owner. And there were times where us as the general practitioners were just like, why is he being so grumpy? Why is this happening? Only now, having been on the other side, and this is what a lot of employees don't realize, is all the stuff that has to go on behind the scenes that they're not privy to. It's for their benefit. It's got nothing to do with them. So they can literally just do what they need to do and be a vet. But all the management side, the payments, the running, it takes its toll. So even though, for example, we close at 5, I'll only leave 6:30 in the evening, and then get home because you're still busy sorting out or what's happened then during the course of the day, checking to make sure all your records are up to date, making sure that everything's all fine. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that the general public wouldn't even be aware of, let alone your employees. There are days where you do take a deep breath, and then the next few months are fantastic.
And it never ends. I mean,
no, it doesn't. It's continuous.
Like we have, you always, there's renovations, there's keeping up to date with the latest developments in terms of CPD and product knowledge. It doesn't never end. I'm sounding so gloomy today, but you have to keep going. You have to keep advancing. You have to keep on top of things.
Because we've got such a dynamic and such an evolving profession as well. I mean, it's the same with the medicine profession. Everything is, it's adapting, it's getting better. The more research, things are becoming more advanced. We're getting AI now coming into our practices as well to facilitate diagnostics and the likes of that, it's exciting. I think it's still very early days. But it certainly does help, because, like I say, we aren't perfect. The machines aren't perfect, but I think a combination of the two will kind of get the answers that we're looking for. And that's also, there are times where it doesn't feel like it ends, because if you've got a particularly complicated case that you just can't seem to get the answer for, it takes its toll, because you beat yourself over the head for not being able to figure out what's going on, even
Ticks
though
on in your brain all the
you're
time.
lying there in bed and you're thinking about this patient that you saw last week that you haven't heard from, so you need to follow up on that. So it's not a part of physically taking the animals home. Mentally, all of your patients are with you the whole time.
Lots of open loops.
Yeah.
Not being able to sort of, I'm done with that job.
Yeah. And there are certain times where you can't find an answer. Not even the specialists can find an answer sometimes. So it all adds up.
Yeah. Any advice to either students ending their high school or people looking at taking on veterinary as a profession?
Yeah. I think it's very important to actually be exposed to it. It's very different coming in with your puppy, and it's all cute and there's little treats offered on the table and it's waggy tails and it's a quick little visit in that little confined room. And then you go home and, that was an amazing visit. Again, it's very different behind the scenes. So we often have high school students coming through for like work experience, final year veterinary students coming through, because also at university, unless you're working in the clinics in your final year, it is quite a sheltered environment. So it's very academic, and then only in the final year do things become, on the complete converse, very practical. So I think it is very important to come and see what it is like at a veterinary practice, because it's not all puppies and kittens and just vaccinations
and
all
lots
day.
Of funds to work up cases.
Yeah. And then to see how the thought processes go, dealing with difficult animals, for example, dealing with members of the public. So there's a massive misconception that being a vet, you only work with animals. Every cat basket and every dog lead has a client attached to it, and you have to know how to work with people.
Absolutely.
And that's a crucial aspect of our profession as well.
And good communication.
100%. So often overlooked, because you think, I'm a vet, I'm only going to be working with animals. Not the case. You do still have to work a lot with people. So if you're wanting to go into veterinary because you think you're not going to be working with people, wrong job to go for. But I think getting an exposure of how veterinary practice works is very, very good. It'll give you some sort of idea. And I think one day, if you hit it lucky, you might get to see anything and everything. Other days you might just see all the routine stuff. So we do routine stuff literally every day. And then, yes, you do get the interesting cases and the ones that do require a lot more workup, a lot more time to be spent on them. And those are the nice ones to then see what is involved in that. Yeah.
And any advice, as I know we've got quite a few vets and vet nurses, and if you just can't deal with the profession anymore, any advice for what else you can do rather than going down the route of your 7 friends and ending?
So I think because there is now there is an awareness of it. I know that the Royal College in the UK are actively researching and responding to mental health issues. So I'm a member of the Royal College as well, so I get all of that feedback and documentation as well. And our veterinary council now as well have started to pick up the reins with that too. But I know it's easy for people who are not in that situation to say, why don't you just talk to somebody? It's not as easy as that. And it can be such subtle little signs and a very, very slow progression into the depression and the anxiety with everything that's kind of loading on. So I just think it's important, even as us as a profession, we need to check up on each other. I've got a lot of vets in this area that I studied with, and we're friends. So, we do check up on each other. We've got our little chat groups. But the important thing is, I think, just be kind to your vet, because yes, we may look all happy and together when you come in for your consultation, but you don't know that we've just had 2-3 euthanasias that we've had to do would have been incredibly emotional, and then we have to put on a happy face to come and vaccinate a little puppy. So puppy loves are amazing. They do make the job so much nicer, and it's almost like a serendipitous moment. If you've had a hard day, you will generally find that in the next, even that day or the next couple of days after that, you'll get your puppy loves. So that can be the emotional swings that we have to then deal with of severe sadness to then ecstatic happiness because you're now dealing with a puppy. So it's an emotional roller coaster ultimately.
Absolutely. And I feel, the same when it comes to complaints, communicate. If we're aware and we then don't choose to manage it correctly, then have every right to be upset about it.
Sure.
But if owners communicate a bit better with us that they're not happy with something, I think, I see the receptionists sometimes take the brunt of unhappy, and people don't communicate to us that there is an issue. And it's only really with things have escalated or non-payments or those kind of situations occur that we become or we're in a position to then try and manage it.
But I think it's also important that if there is an issue from a client's perspective, for example, that you address it with the vet or the practice that you were dealing with initially.
Absolutely.
And sure, if you're hitting a brick wall and you're not getting anywhere and you're not getting anything satisfactory, then by all means you can potentially take it further. But if there's been one little niggle that we're not even aware that there was a problem until we then see it splashed all over social media, dragging the practice name through the mud, for example, I think there's better ways of, yes, I can understand you're probably irritated, you're angry because things didn't turn out how anybody anticipated that they would. But I think, I'm certainly open. Like a client needs to come in and we have an adult conversation about it. There's no point in then hearing half the story on the side of social media with the practice or the vets getting slated. But there's often 2 or even 3 sides of a story that make a cognitive whole. I think it's communication, like you say, is very, very important. And comments that are not true, that are negative, that are then splashed all over Facebook, it's
very damaging.
Yeah, it is. From personally and then from the practice reputation as well. Yeah. So I think, understandably, like I say, if things aren't progressing and you're getting nowhere with whichever vet or practice you're dealing with, then fine, fair enough. But I think initially it is always better to go back to the vet that was dealing with your pet and see if we can sort something out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for this discussion. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry it's been so doom and gloomy.
Yeah, but I think it's important, just to see that from behind the scenes, as a veterinary profession as it's in itself, not even necessarily being a practice owner, but
just to give some insight into sort of the realities of practice ownership and the fact that it's not just as like you say, that sort of front-facing happy vet vaccinating an animal, that there is more complexity to it and there are multiple areas of sort of potential risk. But we are here because we actually enjoy what we're doing.
100%.
We love what we're doing. And, the intentions are always good.
But also we're also always available, be it a phone call or an email or just popping in and coming, having a chat. That's one thing that I've never really understood with pet owners, is that when they eventually come into us, they would have they've asked their breeder, they've asked their friend, they've put it on a Facebook post for the upper highway for advice. And then everyone there will say, speak to your vet, speak to your vet. We are the ones that are knowledgeable. We've studied a heck of a long time to gain this knowledge. We have to keep up with that knowledge. You mentioned the CPDs, so that's a continued professional development. So we have to get a certain number of points over a certain number of time, and then we get audited for that. So we have to keep up with it to make sure that we're keeping up with all the relevant stuff. So it's always ongoing, and we're always there to help. So speak to the people who can genuinely help and give you the correct advice. Pharmacists, they have their place, absolutely. There's no getting away from it, but they are not trained in animal physiology. So asking them information about particularly painkillers and anti-inflammatories from the human side coming across to the animal side, just pick up the phone and speak to us, because there can be severe ramifications for using the wrong medication. And there's no fault of the pharmacist. But
and from a liability perspective,
precisely that as well.
We can't just give out those prescription drugs without having the animal in our care. So we have to have examined them, we have to have weighed them. There is a process to it. It can't just be like, oh, my dog's in pain, can have something over the counter. And I think that's sometimes where we also
you get it because
add-on.
We're just in it for the money for the consult, but that's not our rules.
No,
that's the medicine side of and that's government. So we have to abide by those rules and laws. So it's not like we're making life difficult by not giving out medications that are scheduled. That's the law. That's what we have to abide by. So that can also get a little bit of friction from clients who don't understand it. So I've actually done a little pamphlet that I hand out that's got all the different scheduling and what you can get over the counter and what you need then to see the vets for.
Absolutely.
So education and communication.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to circle back to our start of our conversation. We were talking about rabies, and it's been great that we've done so many rabies vaccinations. I mean, we're talking thousands now over the last few years.
Yeah.
Owners still need to come in with the yearly checks.
And absolutely.
This is not a money-making thing. This gives us an opportunity to examine their pet, pick up on things that maybe are not obvious to them, have a discussion about things that maybe they, or even taking a body weight that we will have recorded it the year before to say, are you aware that your dog or cat has lost X amount of weight?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are subtle, but they can sort of indicate that there is a problem, and it allows us to then intervene before.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So don't skip your regular vaccinations.
No.
There's a lot of parvo and distemper, particularly in this area out there.
And that again becomes to, unfortunately, when complacency starts setting in. So when you don't see things for a while, then people are just like, well, it's not necessary to do the vaccinations, to do deworming, to do tick and flea control.
Or you get a trend where everyone's anti-vax. And people don't understand that.
I know COVID did cause a lot of problems with regards to that because people were then very suspicious about what's going on. But I mean, obviously that vaccine is a completely different conversation. But I mean, the vaccines that we use have been around for decades.
And they're
safe and they are absolutely essential with regards to, so we're not just vaccinate for anything and everything. You can also then tailor make for the patient, whether you are the pets that are in your household. So that's why it's important to go in and speak to your vet. So your pet might not need rabies, yes, but the other stuff they might not need potentially every year.
Yeah.
So there's different ways of tailor making treatment plans for parasite control, vaccinations, medications, and all the rest of that. But it's important that you chat to the right people, which is us. We're here to help.
Yes.
That's what we're here for.
And thank you. Thank you for continuing to return to the podcast and share your knowledge. It's always so nice having a chat with you.
Yeah.
Really informative.
Thank you.
Dr. Nic Stirk.
Thanks, Cora.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nic, for sharing your experiences and giving us a deeper understanding of what it takes to run a veterinary practice. It's clear that while owning an independent practice comes with its share of challenges, like managing rising costs and dealing with rabies risks and navigating client relationships, the rewards of providing personalized care and building strong bonds with pets' families make it all worthwhile. For our listeners, remember to support your local independent vet. They're not just a business, they're a vital part of your pet's health journey. Until next time, take care of your pets, but don't forget to give them a big hug from me. You can subscribe to the Paws Effect podcast for more insights from experts like Dr. Nic Stirk. Follow us on social media and share your thoughts about today's episode. Have a question about veterinary practice ownership? Send it in and we'll answer it in future episodes. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hello, Doctor. It's Chanel the Persian. And, I can't seem to stop retching to get this hairball up.
Are you on a special diet?
Excuse me?
Hairball control food will really help. And maybe some Laxapet. And lucky for you, Just for Pets have a big range.
Well, how early can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
Wow, I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.